Please welcome to the stage moderator Cindy Davis.
There you go, sign of support. Good.
Are you ready to go? I think we're probably ready to go.
Great.
Yes? Alrighty. Hi there. Welcome. My name's Cindy Davis. I'm the content director for AV technology. And we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to make this super efficient. We're here today to discuss when and how the circle of knowledge to engage, how to widen the circle of knowledge to engage and recruit next-gen AV, young next-gen AV. And that's really very often now it's Gen Z. But it's not just young professionals that we want to get into the industry. We also want to really help any level of folks really advance their career in the AV industry. And mentorships are really the most effective way to accomplish that. And we're here today with Christie because this topic is very near and dear to their heart. And they actually walk the talk. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and give a little bit of context of why you're on this panel today.
Sure. My name is Matt Eckstein. I'm a senior engineer with CENSEO AV and Acoustics. We're a small consulting firm based in Kailua, Hawaii, and I work out of our Denver, Colorado office. I am currently one of the co-chairs of the AVIXA Rising Professionals Council, and so this is one of our big initiatives is supporting mentoring and continuing education of rising professionals through outreach, mentorship, and things like that. Supporting the initiatives that companies like Christie are working on to retain and mentor and bolster their rising professionals. So that's a little bit about me.
My name is Zoran Veselic. I'm president and CTO of Christie Digital Systems. My first Infocom was in 1995, so I'm telling you how old I am. But throughout these years, I realized how important it is to get the young professionals into our industry, how critical it is to attract young people and to retain them in our industry. And as I learned on the shoulders of big giants of projection industry in 90s, I feel obliged to share that knowledge with others so other people can master their skills and gain more knowledge.
Thanks, Zoran. My name's Shawn Mills. I'm the director of display engineering at Christie. I work directly for Zoran, and I was 11 when Zoran went to his first Infocom. So we've worked together for a number of years, actually. The last 12 years or so that I've worked with Zoran has been really great. He's been one of my mentors, and my responsibility at Christie is to build and grow the display engineering team, which is responsible for our microTele LED product and other direct view products, and working directly with Zoran. So I've been at Christie for around 14 years, and I've been able to come to Infocom for about 10 of those years, which has been great, and seen a lot of things change. And yeah, definitely echo Zoran's comments that learning from some of the big names and being a young professional in the industry has been really exciting, and something I like to continue for sure.
And hi, I'm Brian Gifford. I'm the Executive Vice President of Global HR with Christie Digital as well. I'm here because of a career devoted to creating environments that promote employee development and allowing employees to reach their potential and thereby making companies successful. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, and I'll tell you a little bit about the stuff that we're doing at Christie that hopefully you could use in your own places.
Great, thanks. And truly, we're really very lucky to have a company here that's actually truly doing what they say and really helping mentor. So Zoran, I'd like to really start with you and ask, talk about your in your past, and really, how has Christie developed a more formal initiative around mentoring?
As we learn, our circle of knowledge gets larger. And what it means is that we have more touch points with unknown. So more we learn, more we realize how little we know. So it is extremely important that we provide mechanism within our companies to accelerate our employees' desire to master their skills and gain new knowledge. In the old days, you had people who had a small notes, with tips and hints on their jobs, and they wouldn't share that with anybody because that meant to be a job security. Those are dinosaurs. I mean, that's a long past time. The new era, when everybody can go to Google and internet and find information, is completely different. So respect that new managers can gain is by sharing the knowledge, not by holding back that knowledge from employees. So I was very lucky that I was in a situation that managers mentored me, and I was pretty young at that time, and you know how people say that wise people learn on the mistakes of others? So they opened the door for me. So I went through many departments within Christie Digital over the years, and but it was up to me to make efforts to go through those doors. But I'm very grateful that they were actually recognizing potential. They were not sure, you know, how far I was going to go, but opening that door was critical for me, and I just took a chance, you know, and moved through those doors. So mentoring is essential for young professionals. When you go to a new company, and I do have an open door policy, so anybody can come and talk to me about anything. Most new people are very shy, and they don't have that kind of immediate courage, you know, to knock on the president's door and say, you know, what do you do here and how can you mentor me? So I do think that formalizing that process, consciously allocating executives time to mentor young people, and that our employees know where to go, and that they're going to operate in a safe environment where they can ask stupid questions. You know, they can, although there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. But we can encourage them to step up and be interested in learning. So Christie has been, I'm proud to say, very focused on our internal education ecosystem. We started Christie University more than 15 years ago. And one element in personal development is not sufficient. You have to have multiple vehicles to educate people, and mentoring on top of the leadership education, on top of management training. Mentoring is something that accelerates your learning, because you can get and ask questions that people spend days and months figuring out the answers, and you can get it in the essence, you know, in a very short period of time. So we wanted to formalize that so that all our employees feel safe and non-constrained in their effort to learn. So here's one example. So he's going to tell you more about how that went for him.
Right. And Shawn, you know, if you would, as I understand, you have been mentored by Zoran, but you've also you're developing your own team within Christie.
Yep.
So how are you applying what you've learned through your mentorship with Zoran? How are you applying that to developing your new team?
Yeah, it's a good question. So mentorship with Zoran was interesting and a little intimidating, to be truthful. You know, 12 years ago or so, bit of an intimidating gentleman here. But you know, ultimately, once you realize that you know, we're all just humans, we're all trying to do the right thing, we're trying to do the same thing. That's really the thing you have to get past. So my mentorship experience with Zoran was really, you know, interesting in that sense that, like he said, very open door policy. So when I'm building my team, I'm trying to emulate that in a lot of ways. So I have a small team. Ultimately, my role is to grow this team in a large way. Starting with myself as employee one, we're now at 12 or 13 people, and we're supposed to grow it in another over another number of years quite a bit. And ultimately, what I'm trying to emulate is that open door policy, right? That's a thing that has absolutely been huge for me, and ultimately never saying, you know, never just saying that if you're a junior level person, I'm not going to talk to you as the director. That just doesn't apply anywhere. You have a small team, really for your entire life. You have to treat it that way. You have to think about the fact that everybody is important and everybody is very different as well, right? The way that my most senior level engineers, maybe people that are in a different generation, Gen X's, for example, the way that they want to be recognized is very different from the millennials on the team or the Gen Z on the team as well, right? You have to think about this generational gap that is just fundamentally different across the board, right? So being able to do that is really important, and just have an open door policy and just talk to people, learn what they want, right? Everybody's different.
And we're very lucky to have someone from your HR team here, because this doesn't just happen, with one person deciding to, be a good mentor, right, and pass that down. There's a very formal policy. So how have you been supported, through HR in your mentoring?
Yeah, ultimately the support's been very, very good in the last number of years. So truthfully, a dozen years ago or so, 10 years ago, there were some things that we needed to work on, and we absolutely have done that in the last 4 or 5 years, where we have official programs. We have programs where we can get our junior level staff to work with more senior level individuals. We allow people to attend shows like this so that they can really get exposure, things like that have been formalized and actually really pushed. And we're intentionally saying, you have to do this as part of your development. It's in your performance review cycle, because some people won't ask to do it, and really you just have to sometimes push people to take that step, right? Yeah. Open the door, as Zoran said, right? And help them walk through it.
Yep. So Matt, I want to go to you. So you're on AVIXA's Rising Professionals Council, which is really great. So in particular, hybrid it's been a challenge for everyone, but in particular for mentoring, mentees and mentors. Zoom can't be the best mentoring platform. So tell us a little bit about some best practices folks can adopt to really help that.
I think Christie is sort of a really great model in this case, right? So, being in a multinational corporation, Zoran mentioned that Christie has an open door policy. Well, what if there are no doors, right? Like, what if we're hybrid, working from home? What if, COVID sends us all working from home anyway? What if we're working across multiple locations? It's really about sort of formalizing that mentor-mentee relationship, establishing, these are times that we're just going to set aside and have a conversation, right? These are our mentoring sessions. I think that is so critical to the success of these kinds of programs. One of the things that we learned through COVID, certainly what people are calling the big quit or the great resignation, as part of AVIXA's Rising Professionals Council, we did outreach and market intelligence to find out, well, what were the driving factors that led rising professionals to leave their job? And overwhelmingly, 65% of the respondents said that they chose to leave their position because of a lack of access to growth and mentorship. And that's huge, right? More than pay, more than benefits, having a lack of upward mobility within the company and education and formal mentorship kind of speaks volumes to where the industry is going. I love that you mentioned, the difference between millennials and Gen Z and Gen X and sort of what those needs are in the market. And it's so interesting to me because people still think of the millennial generation as being the rising professionals. And in reality, most millennials are already in middle management or senior management positions, right? And we're talking about people who've been in the workforce for 10 or 15 years now. And so really, as we're talking about the young professionals or the rising professionals in the industry, we're looking past just the millennial generation into Gen Z and identifying what are those things that Gen Z is looking for in a workplace, and how do we provide those in terms of our recruiting efforts, but more importantly, how do we continue to apply those values and align those values with company values so that we can retain those young and rising professionals into the future.
Great, yeah. So Brian, you've run this program, and actually, how long has there been a formal mentoring program at Christie?
Well, actually, since Zoran came, Zoran has always been a proponent of it. So he has always made sure it's been there. But in the last 5 years or so, we've really put it together. It just so happens to be I've been with the company for 5 years as well. So
that's great.
For about the last 5 years, we've really tried to formalize stuff. Yeah.
So we've mentioned a lot about Gen Z, and as you mentioned, it's millennials are in middle management, and many of them would like to continue rising up the ladder in their career. So, how does someone in middle management rise up through a mentoring program?
Well, basically, although some people are reluctant to speak up because it's not in their nature, somehow or other you have to make it known what your desires are, what your capabilities are, because nobody knows better what career choices you'd like are making them. A manager has maybe 100 employees, and if he gets 85 out of 100 right and only screws up 15, for him that's a big win. But if you're one of those 15, that's not so hot. So you really have to make sure, if you can't do it with yourself, just by yourself, because you're not an extrovert, take advantage of mentorship programs if they have one, and talk closely with your mentor or a colleague that will make sure that they help represent you. Because you don't have to be an extrovert to be successful in many different positions, right? But at least we have to figure out a way to know you. And one of the things Shawn said, managers need to know their people. They need to know who will have a little bit of trouble speaking up for themselves and make sure they represent them.
Before we came up on stage, I was mentioning, I've been a manager and I've had different departments where it's like, I want that person, or that department will want somebody from my department. And when I've had department managers block me. And you said, well, you've written that into your into a formal.
We did, because it has happened also at Christie in the past where they're too important to let them go. That doesn't do any good for the organization. It holds the employee back, and that's not something that's acceptable. So we've just, in fact, we're about to reissue that and repost it again to let everybody know, no blocking, that's not permitted. You have to be supportive. That's what I said about creating an environment that's developmentally supportive. You can't speak out of both sides of your face.
So COVID and hybrid working has changed the environment. How do you mentor and track progress success on mentorship? Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, like I said, I think having an open door policy is really important. But what happens when the doors are gone? What happens when we're in a virtual environment? Everyone's working from home. And I think establishing a routine, right? So, being able to go up to Zoran and say, I really respect the work that you do here. Or even more realistically, what do you do here, right? I mean, you've got a big, important corner office, but what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis? And being able to start those kinds of conversations and let management know, I'm interested in this as a career path, because establishing that program becomes so important. But finding time, taking time out of a busy week that, all of us are sort of like cramming as much as we possibly can in AV engineering and design work into our short little work weeks. But taking time out of that week to really stop and think, like, where do I want my career to go? How do I get there? And how can I support my mentee to reach their goals? I think that's so absolutely critical. And no less critical just because we're working remotely.
Great. So, Brian, I'd love to end with you because we don't have a whole lot of time left. Could you provide some top 5 examples of either a company that's looking to set up a mentorship program, or
Sure.
Frankly even
I'll speak really quickly. How's that?
Yeah.
First of all, you've got to have a senior management team that values development. That's one thing that's important. You've got to invest in a learning management system so that you can track your progress of your employees, as you were talking about. No matter where they are, you can track them. You have to have a good succession plan, which is different than a replacement plan. A replacement plan is a guy gets hit by a beer truck, how do you replace him? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a planned succession of employees up through your organization in a way that you can help manage their career so they're ready to compete when those roles come open. Determine early on in an employee's career what their capability is so that you can help steer them to meet their potential. And that means you have to know your employees And number 5, formalize the mentoring process. You have to formalize it. You have to have a top level review at least once a year where the management team at the senior level reviews to establish exactly what's going on with the executive, and you carefully select those that are mentoring. Because if you have a bad mentor, you're going to have a bad experience. So that's basically it. And you have to differentiate between coaching and mentoring. Two very different things. Coaching is, in the role presently, and mentoring is talking about your whole career going forward. It should be done by a skip-level manager at least.
Great. Thank you so much. And you know what, very importantly, all of these folks are willing to share more information, so here are all the contacts. Please reach out, and let's keep that conversation going. Mentorship's the way to go.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much.
you.
It's great to see you all live and in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.